Judy Warner. Welcome back to our next podcast at DesignCon 2023. I'm delighted to be joined by Ben Dannan, who is of Signal Edge Solutions, a consultancy, and he is also a full-time employee of a prime military contractor, and he's a technical fellow. So we're going to talk a little bit about the show and what Ben has been doing. So why don't you take a moment and introduce us and tell us what exactly you do as part of your engineering growth and step, and then your role here as a speaker.
Well, Judy, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be back on your show. I love talking with you. So, I am a technical fellow at an aerospace defense contractor. I work on multiple things for the DoD and space applications. And then I also have my own consulting business, Signal Edge Solutions, where I provide design services, measurement, modeling, and high-speed simulation, end-to-end simulation sort of applications. It's focused mostly on the signal integrity and power integrity space. At DesignCon, I've been having a blast. I've been running around with Heidi Barnes and Steve Sandler, and we're getting to this a bit in a minute, but Steve Sandler and Heidi are definitely two of big mentors in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for mentors like what we have in this community, and I'll just say the ecosystem at DesignCon, because it's awesome, right? Coming to DesignCon every year, I always say to everybody, it's the mecca for everybody who does EMC, SI, PI. The slogan is where the chip meets the board, and it holds true year in and year out.
That's why I did the DesignCon tailgate party, because Matt Burns called it the Super Bowl of high speed, and I loved that. And so I made the DesignCon tailgate party, so now it's game time, baby.
Right, exactly.
So here we are, and we've all been drinking from the fire hose. So Ben is a younger engineer for us old people. Do you remember your first DesignCon and what that was like for you?
I do. Actually, I was working with Lee Ritchie at the time. He was a consultant, and I had never been to DesignCon, nor had I heard about it. And so he said, if you're looking for a conference to go to, the conference that is still one of the best, if not the best, technical conferences to go to is DesignCon. And so I think that was like 2017 or 2018. So in 2019, I went to my first DesignCon. All thanks to what guidance and mentorship that Lee Ritchie gave me. And because of that, I was hooked. I came and I said, this place rocks. I said, how is it that I do not know about this and that I've never been to this in my career, right? I'd already been an engineer for over a decade at that point, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And so in 2020, I came back and presented my first DesignCon paper, and I won. And I've been hooked ever since. I got the bug. Like Bert says, Bert Simonovich, another great regular
guy
at DesignCon. Bert Simonovich says, you get the bug, and it's hard to stop. And so thanks to Lee, he was a mentor for a part of my life, and still we talk a lot. We have a great relationship. I bought Steve Sandler's book in 2020, right after I presented my paper at DesignCon, because I had the bug. I wanted to keep learning, and I was transitioning, so I was on active duty, and so I bought Steve's book, and one thing led to another. I had a question, so I emailed Steve. He answered. And I had another question, so I emailed Steve again. And of course he answered. And so we kept talking, it kept progressing, and a friendship and a mentorship developed. And I have a wonderful relationship with these guys like Steve and Heidi and Lee Ritchie, and all of that is because it all started at DesignCon. Right? I don't think I would have been introduced to who Steve Sandler was if it wasn't for coming to DesignCon and seeing his names like Eric Bogatin, Steve Sandler, Peter Palukis, and all these, Istvan Novak. Come on, I can't forget him. There's so many, and they're all humble. Like we talked about this a minute ago, right? You could literally meet this guy on the street and you wouldn't know he's a rock star, but he'll make time for you. Any of them will. And Heidi is no different. They're all awesome people.
So I think that's a good place to sort of jump off of our conversation is, still in the sort of the first half of your career, let's say.
Sure, yeah.
What of the roles of mentors? You just mentioned all the rock stars, and it's something I always try to tell engineers in their in the early stages of their career is like, you have no idea that you can just walk up and shake their hands. I've seen so many people go, oh, there's Eric, oh, there's Steve, and because they're kind of the rock stars of the show, thinking they're unapproachable because they so respect their knowledge. By the way, Lee Ritchie is 2 boosts down so far, and Steve's been all around here, just won Engineer of the Year, which I'm so pleased about.
Yeah,
but
congrats to Steve. It's awesome.
It's so great, but they are so humble, approachable, and they're eager to give away and share their knowledge. And so how would you encourage other engineers to have a similar path
Sure,
to
simple.
yours and mentors?
It's simple, right? One of Steve's legacies, and he'll tell you this, is his legacy is to pass down what he's gained with his 40 plus years of knowledge and experience. And he has a lot. I am pulling out tons, and I have to just filter through and organize it. And that's just one example, right? The best advice I'll give you, and it's really a simple advice, is the answer is always no, unless you ask. And all you have to do is ask, right? You don't know what these guys are going to say, but I can tell you from experience, they are almost never going to say no to you. And this community, when I first became a part of it, right, thanks to guys like Lee Ritchie and Steve Sandler, I am now part of the technical program committee at DesignCon, and I love it. It's very tribal, and it's welcoming with a big open arms. You want to get more involved? Come on in. Join us. We'll have you. Let's play. Let's collaborate. Let's grow and work together, because we don't know all the answers. We're still solving the next problems and working on today's problems.
Right.
And so that's really it. Just ask.
You know, you and I were talking before the podcast, and I was saying, again, as one that's almost at the finishing line of my career, is remain like that Tim McGraw song is, always be humble and kind, right?
Love that song.
And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah.
It's an old-fashioned idea, but this community certainly has its own culture of being welcoming.
Does.
And really deep subject matter,
Oh my gosh.
but accessible.
Yeah.
And so I'm always encouraging engineers to invest in themselves by coming.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. It takes you away from work.
But it is so worth it. Since I've been coming to do DesignCon, the papers I've published, the things that I've learned and grown from just by working on these problems and talking and presenting, you grow immensely. It pays infinite amount of dividends in return just by coming, and let alone if you write and publish, it's an even bigger amount of dividends that you're going to get back in return to your career.
So you're saying you can't learn everything you need to know on YouTube?
That's a fair statement. And I would agree with that. There's definitely lots of avenues and resources out there, and you need to make sure you're using all of them effectively.
Yeah, and there is a lot good. In fact, to that point, I got to interview Robert Franek today, and he's such a gem. I love that guy.
He's such a nice guy.
So, and he does put out really good
does.
YouTube. So it's not that that's not important. I just find that here you get that human interaction.
You do.
And you get that kind of feedback.
You do.
That really brings some of that.
And the
content
papers
alike.
here are amazing. I mean, I saw a paper yesterday, and they were talking about how they are mitigating far-end crosstalk in a package or substrate for DDR5, and it was actually quite novel. And then, you can tell that concept that was presented yesterday in this paper, there's so much work that's going to manifest just from that idea that was presented, and who knows what it's going to lead to next.
Right. And maybe you wouldn't have seen that paper.
Correct.
Had you not been here.
Yeah.
Gotten to download the... Anyways, I'm sounding like a real cheerleader for DesignCon, but I share...
It's hard not to be.
It's hard not to be, and I share the value that you give to this show. But I so appreciate you, Ben. It's been so fun to get to know you, and I'm positive that as the baton gets handed over from us old folks to you, that you're going to take it and run. And it's really exciting for us to see young engineers like you participating, stepping into this community and taking that baton and running. So I really appreciate that about you. Any last thoughts before I let you go? I know you're trying to get off to more sessions.
Well, Judy, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to the next conversation.
It won't be long, I promise you. For Judy at the Ecosystem, that's been our DesignCon recap with Ben Dannan. Thanks so much for joining us.